Hey everybody, welcome back to the Brand Exchange podcast. I'm very excited to have my next guest this week, Miss Liz Skalla. She is an entrepreneur, she's a founder, she's a mentor with a very passionate focus on brand strategy, building brands and internal alignments. And she is also a founder at the Founders Institute. So we already have the second Founders Institute member on the show, and the owner of Skalla Consulting. Just to name a few, I didn't have the time to scroll 5 minutes through your LinkedIn experiences. So very impressive. Liz, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. This is so fun.
Yeah. I'm so excited to get some value out to the companies that might still struggle a little bit with the value in the brand and how to
Yep.
build it and how to approach the entire thing. So I thought that maybe we can break it down a little bit today for them
Yeah.
and maybe do a little bit the what, the why, and the hows, and
hmm
drop some brand strategy value bombs on the crowd today. Are you
Yeah.
ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. The elephant in the room question that every guest of the show gets pretty much right away, and I'm just trying to gain as many perspectives on it as possible. And that would be, Liz, what is branding to you?
That is such a good question. It's complicated and it can mean different things to different people. Even a marketer versus another marketer, it can mean something very different. And we can often use different words to say the same thing. So we have to get very descriptive when we're talking about all these strategies, about what we're trying to build and create and bring to life for a product or service. So for me, brand is not a tagline. It's not a key message. It's not an ad. It's not a logo. Those are all elements that bring a brand to life. To me, brand is really the gut feeling that all of those pieces that then, all the really smart creative directors and designers and copywriters, they all use to bring a brand strategy to life. And then the brand becomes this feeling or the words that pop into our head when we hear a name of a product, name of a service, name of a company. So for example, when I hear the brand name Southwest Airlines, I think more fun. I think, fun experience flying in the skies. And that was incredibly deliberate by the very smart brand and marketers at Southwest Airlines. That word and that feeling of excitement of a fun time is, it happened to me because I saw and heard and read and listened and visualized and experienced when I was on the plane even. Their brand threaded through all of those touch points, like their tagline, their logo, their tone of voice, even the way that their flight attendants speak to the passengers during the flight. So
Mm-hmm.
they are a great example of a brand that really truly owns their brand positioning. And again, to me, it's really that what brand is, it's really that gut feeling that the consumer, whoever your customer is, whoever that stakeholder is, what they think and feel when they hear your name.
Awesome. I'd like to challenge you on two other guests, and including myself,
Sure.
on two words that has been used in as a replacement for the term brand or branding, and that is one, experience and reputation. What do you
Yeah.
think of those two words?
So I think brand can be carried through an experience. So you can have an experience with a brand. For example, when I'm on flight of a Southwest airline plane, I'm
Mm-hmm.
experiencing their brand, from the color of the seat to if they've decided to put TVs in the back of the chairs to how their staff talk and engage to the passengers. So I think experience is a vehicle where a
Mm-hmm.
brand can come to life. Um,
Okay.
and I think reputation, to me, that is almost a goal, right? So a brand can have a goal around brand perception. And so when I hear brand reputation, it's like, what kind of reputation do you want to have, right? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to stand for? And again, to me, that all kind of comes back from, it all stems from the brand strategy. Like what's that one thing you're trying to be kind of known for? And it, there's all different types of reputation. It's not just positive or negative.
Okay, cool. I got that, but let's just dive a little bit deeper for people
Yeah.
to maybe get the gist of it. So, if we would compare a company that has a strong brand versus a company that is in a similar industry, or maybe even competing in the same industry, but doesn't have a very meaningful brand or didn't put much investment in it,
And that was
what
well
do you
known.
believe?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you think is the biggest difference between those two competitors?
Yeah. I mean, look, a brand can become well known and simply have a reputation versus a brand that just simply doesn't and isn't as well known for a number of reasons, right? Not just what the brand strategy was. I do a lot of work in consumer packaged goods, and there are a lot of stories of brands that became very successful because they had the resources to become successful, and other brands and products that are really great, but they just didn't have the resources. I don't know. I think it depends on the category you're in. I think there are also examples, even within CPG, of small bootstrapped brands that didn't have the resources, and using brand strategy, they were able to generate a super strong reputation, far and above some of their competitors that had a stronger reputation prior to them hitting market. So, for example, RX Bar comes to mind. So here in the States, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of protein energy bars. When you go to the grocery
Okay.
store, there's just a wall of options. And they all, they're all a little different. They all have their, thing. But what RX Bar did, they're just, two founders, first time, totally bootstrapped. They launched in Chicago the same time I launched my first startup, and I just watched them completely soar. They were so clever. They found a pretty niche, very specific group of people that felt like they didn't have a power energy bar for them. So the paleo dieter, they made a bar for that diet, which was like a really new trend. They completely branded for that audience. They made their product.
Okay.
They designed the product completely for that audience. And then they knew how to reach them. So instead of selling into grocery, they were like their first 3 to 5 years, they were obsessed with selling into CrossFit gyms because they knew that's where a lot of paleo dieters worked out. Slowly, other types of dieters started to hear about them and say like, oh, well, if a paleo dieter is eating that bar, it's got to be clean enough for me too. And then grocery stores started seeing everyone having it. People started asking their local grocery store to carry it. And they just exploded like year 5, year 6. And they sold to Kellogg for $600 million, like year 6 in market, which for a food or bev, that's like bigger than Facebook in our world. Like just a monster
Crazy.
success. And they did it because they didn't have reputation to start with, right? And a lot of just like 2-founder bootstraps, like just trying to, hit the pavement themselves. Like a lot of those folks without a lot of resources, they're never going to get the reputation that a more established, stronger brand might have. But I think with very clever, very strategic, like a very strategic brand strategy and plan, that's tied to a go-to-market that has a phased approach, right? So they were very formulaic and, okay, our first year, we're going to be this brand and this product for these people, and we're going to do direct sales to CrossFit gyms. So it's very mapped out. They're like, once we have enough equity in that phase, we're going to jump to the second phase and go to the next ring of people who would try to eat like a paleo dieter at a CrossFit gym. And let's figure out where they shop. Let's loosen the brand messaging a little bit, make it a little, not just for paleo dieters, and loosen the product a bit to fit, kind of like more like getting closer to the everyday consumer. And then eventually they were like, the cleanest bar option for the everyday consumer. And now they're in every airport in the country and just everywhere.
Awesome.
So yeah, they
Yeah,
come to mind when talking about reputation and strategy.
great example. I also have another one, but before I say that, I just would like to get a very early bird summary here for anyone who's listening. Like, I think another solution that maybe brand strategy offers if you invest in it early on could be to really like come together and double down on who your and figuring out who your target market really is, and then
Yep.
that might saves you the mess of just saying, oh, okay, I'm just gonna join the mess on Facebook or whatever on
Yep.
Instagram and just try my lottery luck there and driving some outreach. But yeah, I mean, those two founders apparently found their offline channel, which
Yeah.
definitely worked out, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Because direct sales, sending emails, picking up the phone, making calls, that's also very strategic. And it's a way
Hmm.
to bring your brand to life. You're representing the brand, but it doesn't have cost, right? It doesn't have hard costs
Right.
like Facebook ad manager does.
Hmm.
And it's pretty direct. So yeah, I agree. A lot of times when you and I, we both work with a lot of different types of companies and clients. A lot of very smart people think that a brand strategy and it does it's all about positioning, right, and differentiating based on a customer's unmet want or need that there's not a lot of competition for. But it doesn't just have to be a brand play or a product play in terms of positioning. Like we're seeing a lot more brands positioning for a specific consumer or customer group first, and then they're tailoring the brand and product to that group.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there are a million ways to approach it, but that's one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
uh, quickly, because we were on the protein bar discussions, have you ever heard the brand called Three Wishes?
It sounds familiar.
It's like a mom and a dad. They were like super frustrated about that all the cereals that they bought in the house were just full of sugar, and
Right.
I think they live in California or something like
I
that.
think, yeah, they're incredibly successful. Yes, low
Yeah,
carb, low sugar. Yep.
and yeah, they just, I mean, I think the mother was like a big ad agency and the dad was a copywriter or vice versa. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like they started from zero, but
Right.
uh, I thought that just like again from the same example of starting small and just like being true of what you do and figuring out, okay, like there are really people who need this, and this is an honest product. It comes from the heart, if I want to be cheesy, but
Yeah. Right.
um
Right.
like all of those things like properly summed up together, I think can really make a difference, and you can go against giants like Nestle and Kellogg's
I
and I
totally
don't know whatever
agree.
is out there.
I completely agree. And when I'm mentoring startups through Founder Institute and other programs like Start Out, and I always try to keep in mind when a founder is working on something that came from a personal situation, right? A
Hmm.
personal experience where there wasn't a product or service for them that they were satisfied with or was really meeting their needs. Like those become to your point, so meaningful because then you become part of the brand, you're living the brand, and it's really threading from you to the message to the audience.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of examples, right? First Bees comes to mind, but a lot of
Yeah.
successful brands where just it's all very authentic and relative because they're their own customer, right? Like the founder was their core customer and they know what the customer's going through, what they want, and so yeah, those are often very successful stories too.
Yeah, 100%. What's your point of view if you say like, do these companies like benefit from a strong brand, and why?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. I've done work for some brands that I thought, oh boy, this is going to be an incredibly dry brand strategy project, and they've turned out to be really emotional and meaningful. So I've done projects for aluminum raw material, like companies that
Wow.
literally turn coal into aluminum foil, or even the raw material that then gets sold to the aluminum foil manufacturer. Um, I've done brand strategy for Fannie Mae, like not fintech, like they're the oldest financial, company in the in the country. And I went into
Okay.
that thinking, oh man, it's gonna be just pretty dry. But what I have quickly found and been pleasantly surprised about is every company, every business has stakeholders, right? Whether that's external stakeholders, customers they're trying to sell their product or service to, or even internal stakeholders, right? And so they have someone they have to make happy, and they're someone that they want to be the only choice of. Whether it's constituents, again, investors, like whoever your stakeholder is, you want you want those folks to be choosing you first, to have no question, to trust you, to be proud, that they're working with you. And so that's where brand comes in, positioning on what you are going to do for those stakeholders and how you're going to make them happy to choose you and feel good about choosing you. That's all brand. So I do think there's a lot of value for even those types of organizations.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning the external and internal. I think the reason ask you that question is really that it has been asked to myself a couple of times when I joining events, and people like natural resources actually comes up a lot if you're in Asia, because we have
Hmm.
wide variety of them, and like people asking me,
Yeah.
should I invest anything in it. I do have this same or similar answer to it, but I think one important part of it is really the internal part of brand strategy that I think most people don't realize if you're not a brand strategist and not super within the topic, is that if you just simply make sure that your internal key decision makers, and even the entire team actually is so much more aligned on what to do next year and what the
Hmm.
goal is, so everyone can think a little bit for themselves and say, okay, maybe the emails that I need to write should have at least like these two words in it, because we're trying to own these two words in the industry, or you know any kind of sorts of things like that. So, I
Hmm.
think starting just internally
Right.
for providing clarity, I think just has
Yep.
already that incredible amount of value to whoever you are.
Yep. Yeah. And even for
Yeah.
internal stakeholders, people have to be happy to go to work, right? And not
Right.
just that, but also there are a lot of situations where the internal team members, even, the customer service team, they're the ones literally bringing the brand to life, or the social media team, or the street marketing team, the brand ambassadors. They are living, breathing people out in the world who are representing your brand, and they need to know what to say and how to represent it. So brand strategy can help with that, and create things like brand guidelines that are on point. So everyone is saying the same words, to your point, and then eventually, once you say all those same words enough, the folks that you want to embed an impression upon will think the same thing about you, and it'll be the thing you want them to think. So hence, Southwest Airlines and how they had that
Yeah.
magic hold over me.
Or think of you if they hear the words externally somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that you also mentioned earlier, like you always talk about branding people and marketers. I guess, like, I mean, that question is absolutely messed up here, here in Asia. I mean, even back in the days from Germany, like I did not know the difference.
Yeah.
I do now, but I would
Yeah.
like
It's super
to
common. Yeah.
get some clarity on what's the difference between branding and
Yep.
marketing in your best possible shot
Yeah.
that you have. Yeah.
So, and this is just my perspective. I think there are a number of companies that have various org structures around this. So I've been a brand strategy consultant and marketing consultant for almost 13 years now. And really long time. So a few things have happened. I've had a couple of startups, but I've also been brought in house by a few of my clients. And one client in particular, Course Hero, an amazing company here in Silicon Valley. They really value brand strategy. They have a robust marketing department that was started in the past, I would say, 7 years or so. And the way that we operated, I think, was really successful, and it made a lot of sense to everyone internally. Where my role was really to develop the foundation and really kind of sit on the bottom, right? And figure out, okay, what is our differentiation? What is our positioning? How are we different? How is that based on a need of our audience and users? What is the strategy? What's our goal? Do we want to keep current users? Do we want to decrease churn? Do we want to win new? Where's the biggest ROI? And a lot goes into that. But once we had the brand guidelines, we called it a brand book, where it's like, okay, here's how we are different and unique, and why we chose this, and here are the words and phrases we're going to use out in the world to bring it to life. This is an evergreen, loose guideline, but it's directional, and so it got passed around to all the marketing different functions. So we had email marketing, social media. We had, brand ambassador street team. We had events. We had digital. And so everyone had that same brand guideline of like, okay, here's our why, how, and what, essentially. And here's some of the words we use. That, like, after me, it went to the creative team, and they did the amazing work of putting this guideline together and attaching words to my strategy. But then marketing, they were the ones who brought the brand strategy to life, right? I just said, I kind of just, like, my role is like to have this hypothesis. Like, if we go out and tell the world that we are A, and say it to these people, B, in this way, C, I think we'll be successful in D. And so, but the marketers are the ones saying, okay, well, I'm going to tweak it a little bit for my channel because my users are have an experience with us in this way, and we're interacting with them in this way. And I go through this channel and this tactic, and so they were the creators of their own function. But yeah, for me, brand is really, internally, branding is the strategy, is the foundation. And then the marketing is what is in like very close collaboration with creative design team, of course, and copywriters, but they're the ones that then bring it to life and execute the strategy. And hopefully it's a good strategy so that they have wins, because they're put, it's a lot of, they're putting a lot of faith in the brand strategy, because they have their own goals to hit. And if the brand strategy is not on point, it's not going to work for them. So there's a lot of responsibility there, on the brand strategist.
I wanted to ask you in an even shorter format if you would agree with the statement that says branding is making people feel something and marketing is making people do something.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is a really great way to succinctly explain, I think, what I was trying to walk through. Long form.
No, it was great.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I think that's really clear.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, if I have you on board, I'm happy, and we can move on. I want to move. We did a lot of what's now. What is branding? What is this? What is that? What is the difference? I want to move a little bit to the why now.
Yeah.
You said 13 years. Very impressive. I hope my run goes that long and longer. But why do you think like brands have become so important in the past decade or so? Like why everyone's talking about having a brand these days, and like why all the tech companies need to have a brand, and like I don't know what changed.
Yeah. Well, I think there's two questions there. I think one is, why even have a brand? Why not just a product? And then, why is it more important now than ever? So to answer the first one, I think there are certainly examples of companies that can get far enough along with having just a product, and even a product that is like exactly the same as the leader in their industry. If there's such a high demand and the total addressable market is so large, so think, Uber versus Lyft, right? Or even Coursera, where I was for 2.5 years in the edtech space. When I started, when they brought me in full time, they were doing really well, very well, but but at that point they were a product, and they were saying the same words and making the same claims and saying that they were the same solution as all of their competitors.
Okay.
And so, they were at, a little over, I don't know if they're open with exact numbers, but let's say they were between 50 million and 100 million when I arrived. And they had raised 15 million Series A to date,
Okay.
but incredibly successful, great margin, incredibly financially stable, really smart people running the company, really smart founders who are still the
Okay.
executives. But they weren't differentiated, right? And when people heard the brand name, they didn't know what to think. They thought product, but they thought of all the other competitors too, right? And so
Hmm.
it wasn't like what's the most fun, or what's the one for me? Like, I want to just go to one place, or I want this or
Right.
that. Like, their brand name wouldn't come to mind. And I think once we determined what we wanted to come to mind for, so what our differentiation was and what the opportunity was, again, based on a user need, and doing different marketing to try and own that, like tell the story, own it, show it. They weren't just a product anymore. They really became a brand. There was
Hmm.
motion. We developed a vision and a vision statement that the CEO uses constantly over and over, just replicate, like just repeating the same line over and over. And they stand for something, and they want to help people. And brand perception increased 10% the time I was there, which is really big. And they have
Awesome.
now raised a Series C. It's like over $300 million. Now they're valued at 3.6 billion. So there's a ton of value. The product is still the same, right? Nothing changed. We literally just put a strategy down on paper and then told the marketing team, like, use these words and these images and these colors and designs, and let's
Hmm.
see if we can attract more users. And it's, and there's other stuff the business did too, for sure. When I think of like a similar example, like Lyft versus Uber, if you stripped Lyft's website, their colors, their words, their images, they would be the exact same product as Uber, right?
Right.
And Uber was a monster compared to them. They were enormous with just enormous more resources than Lyft could ever imagine as when they were starting.
Right.
But Lyft created a brand. I don't know if you remember their first year or two in market. The cars had purple mustaches on the front. Then they
Yeah.
came out with the rainbow unicorn. And now they're catchy, they're clever, they're fun. They're people when you think of the brand, you think that they're nicer, and
Okay.
they're nicer to their drivers because they were. But that was all part of brand
Okay.
strategy. And so there's just a lot of power in brand. And then I think why it's more important today than ever before is because the business world and startups and brand, it's just so crowded. It's more crowded than ever, right? And it's
Hmm.
just so difficult to stand apart and to really capture that mental real estate, in a customer's mind, and like be the one that they think of and that they choose. I mean, I was looking at the stats today, and there's something like 2 times more investing in companies in 2021 versus 2020, but 2020 was the highest year of investment ever before anyway. So there's something like 30% more companies being started every year,
Yeah.
since the beginning of the pandemic than ever before. And so it's really, really hard to be the one that a customer would think of when they have a problem and they're like, oh, I wish there was this type of solution, to be the one that they think of is really like, that is the game. And that's what brand strategy can do. But it's going to be harder than ever because it's so competitive now.
So if I understand you correctly, the one of the key things that you have witnessed is that the one of the possible reasons for the rise in I guess brand investments or trying to figure out a distinctive brand is that the world is becoming a little bit crazier every day, and we just people trying to figure out how to stand out from the crowd.
Yep,
Did I get you right? Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's about.
Okay.
I mean, I would say many, if not most, like, standing out in a crowd. That's like a very common kind of claim that brand strategists make, right? So it's
Right.
not just me coming up with that, but certainly, I mean, I think that's what I think we would kind of all brand strategists would say, like, yeah, that's the value.
Yeah.
Um,
We want to be unique. Yeah.
yeah, you want to be thought of for something, right? And connected to something. Tom's Shoes wants to be, if you're like, oh, I need a new pair of shoes, they want to be the shoe that you think of first.
Right.
That comes to mind.
Yeah, I think for any sustainable, mindful brand, I'll be
Hmm.
working in the future with like I'm gonna get Patagonia thrown in my face for the next 5 years. So yeah,
Yeah, they are the epitome. They're amazing. Yeah, they're
absolutely.
such a great brand.
And another why I would like to get pick your brain on would be if all of the things that we discussed in the last 20 minutes are true, why would you recommend any business owner to at least invest a small portion of it into their brand?
I mean, I think for all the reasons we just talked about, but I also, I think a lot of, and we see this a lot as brand strategists, business leaders, very smart people, they get too close to their product or brand, product or service, and they can't really see from the outside. I mean, I have this with my startups too. I can't do brand strategy for my own products. I have no point of view. And so I think having that I think just having an outside perspective. I mean, doesn't have to be hiring a huge brand firm. It doesn't have to be, trying to, partner with an ad agency. It can be as simple as, a mentor phone call here and there, or a close advisor, or, a smaller boutique firm. But just
Yeah.
having an outside perspective I have seen is so incredibly valuable, because there's things that you just can't see. Like, for example, my own startup, one of the companies I was brought on by a client as a co-founder, um, we make a bottled water, which sounds kind of
Okay.
ridiculous and silly, but as a brand strategist, it's so crowded. So I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Like, I loved the
Okay.
challenge. And we had a label that is basically uh, represents our entire brand and brand strategy, right? The
Mm-hmm.
label on the bottle. And we were in market for about a year, and then we hired a small boutique firm in San Francisco to design a new label, because we didn't see it, but our label looked just like Sunkist. It looked just like another brand's that wasn't
Okay.
even our product. And so we literally just, and like, we weren't thinking that. We're like, no, it's super on brand. It's related to the feeling we're trying to, for people to feel when they see our product and drink it. But once we teamed up with this, strategist and creative director, who had an outside perspective, who understood the value of brand and branding, and knew how to do it, from a strategic point, we launched a new label, which essentially was us redesigning the entire brand, right? Like, launching a new brand. Because
Okay.
again, the label, our packaging is really just an exact replica of our brand, just out in the world. And we grew like 10x once we launched the
Wow.
new label. I mean, we were like this kind of small podunk, like kind of like humming along, and then this is all pre-pandemic. It's been a roller coaster, of course, in other ways and since. But we kind of exploded once we had the new brand slash label. And if we hadn't had that outside perspective, and if we hadn't invested in it, in branding, it wouldn't have worked. And we wouldn't even have known why. Like, we were just pretty lost.
Yeah, no, I think even doctors can't operate on themselves, right? I don't know. There's a concept of things that you sometimes just can't apply it to yourself. But could you give maybe a little bit of a DIY summary of maybe let's keep it simple, maybe the top 3 things, or maybe just the first 3 steps, something like that a business owner that is in the situation right now, launching a service or product, how to start getting to the level of masterfulness?
Yeah. So, there's an exercise that I try to explain in a simple way, and I have a quick Venn diagram visual. When I'm mentoring startups, I share this with I think every single founder I talk to, who lets me talk about myself and brand strategy. So a formula that I use as a brand strategist, and of course as a brand strategist, I go like really deep into these areas, and clients pay me to go really deep and have the outside perspective. But it is an exercise that you can do yourself, and it's 3 steps. And this is just my process, so other brand strategists may have a different process. But for me, what really works, I first look at the market, and you have an idea for a product or service, or you have a product or service already. I start to populate 3 areas. I look at my capabilities, like what can I make? What can I do? What are we? How do we do it? What makes, what are kind of our, some of our attributes, benefits? Make a list of all of that, all your capabilities. Then look at your customers, either using secondary research, or like better yet, like talk to a lot of them. Like, if you can, do a survey on Mechanical Turk, which is an Amazon really affordable survey product. But try to get insights around the problem you're trying to solve for your audience. Ask them questions around, like, do they experience this problem? How do they currently solve it? Is that solution working or not working? Why not? If they had something like your solution, would they use it? Why? Where would they want to buy it? What would they pay for it? So you really want to gather insights from the customers. And then you want to look at your competitors, direct and indirect. And if you just look at their homepage, usually top of the fold, they'll have a statement, H1 on their website, literally saying their positioning and what they're trying to tell the world they're the best at, what makes them different and unique. And make a list of that, right? And then you can kind of start to map those 3 areas together. And what happens is you start to see opportunities for positioning. So you start to see, like, oh, customers really want solution A. There's no competitor delivering on that, or not in a full way. And actually, our product or service is completely designed and made to solve for that. And so that becomes, opportunity A. And just list as many as you can see. And then you've got a starting list. And then from there, you'll drill down, you'll ask yourself questions like, would we even want a position in that way? Do we even want to be that? Or, is the customer group even big enough to be a sustainable business, if we position this way? Or, but then you can kind of start to whittle down the list and eventually land on the winning opportunity.
Very interesting. What do you think about the part between, like, if you trying to build a foundation, right, for a brand, and like someone has told me a very funny example that, like, if you're trying to build a brand, it's a little bit like trying to find a girlfriend or a boyfriend. Is like, you don't want to ask them first how you should be, because you don't want to tweak your entire personality towards your customer
Yeah.
or your girlfriend. You want to figure out first who you are until a certain point, and then like tweak the rest to, you know, have a symbiotic relationship or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Well, it goes back to one of your points earlier where it has to be authentic, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's part of the capabilities part, right? It's, like, how do you feel? What do you believe in? What do you want to be? Not just what can your product do? Can your product be, faster?
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I think that's all part of the capabilities. And then you can start to kind of see how it might all map together once you have that list of opportunities.
Awesome. Okay, so what do we do, and how do we do it? Your customers, and what was the third one?
Competitors.
Competitors, right? So what do you do, your competitors and your customers,
Yep.
but specifically have a focus on how you can solve the problem, and then compare the list internally and try to like, kind of drag out opportunities that have some matches in between.
Yeah.
Write down the opportunities and like take that list and see which one fits to you know, your personal needs, maybe what you want out of the company, and then maybe dial it down to top 2, top 3, top 1 if you can, and try to run with it for a quarter.
Yep. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Do you have any other last tip that you would like to get out there for a DIY solution, or just in terms of like maybe just, hey guys, remember to think about this or do this one if you like starting or rebranding or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just kind of to your point just a few seconds ago, I think, branding is and marketing they're very, marketing that brings branding to life. They're very powerful. And, brands can even shape culture. So I always try to, we always should always try to do something good and, improve people's lives or the world in somehow. Because with that power, I think it's just a big responsibility. And it can be as something as simple as like making people's jobs a little better. If that's what your product, does. I did some work for a file sharing platform, and that was another one I thought might be really dry, but what we were really trying to do is like make people feel less stressed out when they were sharing like really critical, high secured files
Yeah,
with
why not?
others.
It adds value to me.
And
Yeah.
and that was meaningful. So finding that kind of feel good meaning in the brand that you land on, the brand positioning, I think is will not only is just a good thing to do, but will help motivate you and your team for the long term, because every business is a roller coaster. But if you can have something that could become your essence, your ethos, your North Star internally, it's going to also be your brand positioning could also become your motivator during the rough times.
I love it. Yeah, North Star is guiding, keeping the roller coaster ride clean and aligned and straightforward, or at least turning in the right directions.
Yep.
So many things and more. Liz, thank you so much. That was amazing. I hope we inspired some people, helped some people. And I personally enjoyed the conversation so much.
Me too.
I hope I can invite you again.
Thank you. Anytime.
But thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much. This was really fun. Thanks for having me.